Welcome to Illuminating Naenae, a bike tour of Naenae historical sites created and run by the members and staff of Naenae Clubhouse. We'll start with the legend of our mana whenua about how our area was formed. Maori legend tells that the area of Naenae, near where the cemetery now stands, was once a large raupo fringed lagoon. The lagoon was home to two taniwha who protected the local Heretaunga people by feasting on invading armies. A tōhunga declared the lagoon and its inhabitants tapu, forcing the taniwha to instead graze on shrubs and the bark of trees, destroying the forest around them. One day a small boy fell into the lagoon and the taniwha battled fiercely over the prospect of devouring the child. The struggles collapsed the wall of the lagoon and water gushed out to the sea. The two taniwha followed the receding waters, tearing a deep channel in their wake, which became the Waifetu stream. For a long time the stream remained large enough to be travelled by waka or boat. Now we'll go to our first site, stopping at the last house before the Water Street Loop.
This is a secret piece of World War II history in Naenae. This house used to contain a huge vault where the nation's money reserves were stored in case of a Japanese invasion. Reserve Bank records show that the vault was built in the early 1940s when Naenae was mostly farmland.
The 80 square meter vault is protected by a steel-strong room door and has 40 centimeter thick concrete walls.
A house was built over it in the 1950s and the property was sold into private ownership in 1972.
Next we'll walk a little till we get to our next stop at Wesleyhaven. Pākehā came to the Hutt Valley in large numbers following the New Zealand Company's purchase of land from the Māori in 1839. The first British surveyors documented trees 100 feet or more tall, 75 feet to the lowest branch. Organised settlement of Pākehā commenced the following year, and with it large-scale deforestation, timber and clear land for homes and farming. Clear felling of trees followed quickly behind the cutting of a road up the valley, which reached Taita Gorge and Stokes Valley by the end of 1843 and Upper Hutt a year later.
In 1847, an enormous rata tree was recorded on the Western Hills, measuring 56 feet in circumference. The largest known living northern rata tree today. A smaller tree estimated to be more than 1,000 years old lives in the Akataroa forest just north of the Hutt Valley. By 1870, most of the Hutt Valley floor was cleared of trees. Sawmills, including one owned by future Lower Hutt Mayor W.T. Strand, on the land now occupied by the Wesleyhaven Rest Home, continued to extract timber from the hills of the Hutt Valley for building in the Hutt Valley in Wellington. In the early 1900s, large fires further cleared the hills, leaving just more isolated patches of remnant forest, including the old kaihikatea and tocha trees around the corner in Taita and patches of beech here in Naenae. But most of the trees in our hills are relatively young, secondary growth on previous cleared land. The fertile soil east of Naenae Road and up Rata Street towards the hills was used for horticulture until the development of Naenae as state housing suburb after the end of World War II.
Some unique native birds like the huia were long ago hunted to extinction, and others have become rare as their habitat was destroyed. But Naenae is still home to precious bird life, including the rare New Zealand falcon, kareareo, tui, kereru, piwakawaka and ruru, moorporks, which we sometimes hear calling at night. Together we can protect and restore the natural environment. And over many hundreds of years, we could recreate some of the luxuriant forest which once grew here, but was so rapidly destroyed. Now we'll travel down Hay Street onto Waddington Drive. We'll stop just after 20 Waddington Drive under the big tree.
Balgony House was built in 1900 for John Duffy, who was mayor of Wellington in 1888. The house was named after a suburb in Aberdeen in Scotland where Mr. Duffy was born. In those days, the Waifatu stream, which runs around the bottom of the hillside section, was wide enough for visitors to arrive by boat. They would then walk across the bridges, up the paths, through beautiful gardens and ponds, and enjoy the Duffys' elaborate dinners and garden parties.
A grand entrance hallway, sweeping staircase, formal dining room, billiard room and 11 bedrooms made it one of the grandest houses in Wellington. It was one of the first houses in Wellington to have electricity. The house and the electricity generator in a concrete building are listed as Category 2 historic places.
After Mr. Duffy died in 1915, the house was sold to another businessman. Then in 1917, the Sisters of Mercy Trust Board bought it to be used as a boys' orphanage and hostel called St. Thomas. They also bought neighbouring land so they could become self-sufficient. In 1970, the house was sold to the Maris brothers, who used it as a training centre until it was sold in 1984. The house still remains in private ownership.
Now we'll travel to the site of Wītako's Pātaka. Be careful crossing Naenae Road. Take a left into Clendon and cross onto the footpath on the other side of the road onto Cambridge Terrace, stopping just before the overbridge.
One of the most active Māori leaders in the Hutt Valley at the time of the land wars in 1846 was Wiremu Tako Ngātata, usually called Wītako. Wītako was born at Pukeariki Pā in Taranaki about 1815 with his father and other Te Ati Awa leaders. He left Taranaki in 1832. By 1842, Wītako was the Te Ati Awa leader at Kumutoto Pā in Wellington. He was literate in Māori and English and wrote many letters to officials and newspapers to defend his people's interests. He became involved in the Māori King movement after the intolerance and discrimination he experienced from the early settlers made him angry. He didn't agree with violence and warfare and preferred to solve problems through listening and talking. In the early 1850s, Wītako moved from Kumutoto to the site of the old Te Mako Pā at Te Taitai. Here he lived in a house with 17 rooms called Te Mako after the old Pā.
We think it could be about where the Day Street Bridge is now. He had highly skilled carvers build a pātaka called Nuku Tefa Tefa. It was designed to store his taonga and symbolise his support for a Māori king. When Wītako moved out of Te Mako, his friend William Beetham looked after the Nuku Tefa Tefa on his farm in the Wairarapa, then back at Beetham's family house in Wellington.
In 1982, the Beethams offered the pātaka. After 126 years in the outdoors, should go undercover and offered it to the city of Lower Hutt. It now lives in the Dell's Art Museum. Te Mako burnt down in 1928 and people came from all over the valley to see the fire. Wītako died November the 8th, 1887, and it is estimated that up to 5,000 people attended his funeral.
Now we'll ride carefully along the footpath to the Naenae Community Library.
Ernest Anton Plishke was a key figure in the introduction of modernism into Wellington architecture. In the period following the Second World War, Plishke was a socialist who was married to a Jew, so his employment opportunities under Nazi rule were limited, and he and his wife immigrated to Wellington in 1939. just as World War II broke out.
Leshke planned the towns of Mangakino and Kaiangaroa shopping and community centres for the new dormitory suburbs of the Hutt Valley, Naenae, Ipuni and Taido, and Auckland, Mount Roskill and Tamaki. In 1947, Leshke, dissatisfied with the government's handling of the Hutt Valley housing development, resigned from the government service. The original design was later drastically changed by government architect Gordon Wilson.
Naenae architect Leshke took much inspiration for the centre from St. Mark's Square in Venice. He hoped that, like St. Mark's, having a large central square would bring the community together. All of the shops were designed to open out onto the square to give space for foot traffic, al fresco dining and civic functions. Opened in 1954, Hillary Court was New Zealand's first pedestrianised shopping mall.
Walk your bike through the mall to Naenae Pool.
Naenae Pool, Naenae Olympic Pool, was officially opened on 10th November 1956 by Mayor Percy Dowse. The pool was built at a cost of $150,000, part of which was alleviated through a special right of residents of Ipuni, Taira and Naenae. At the time of the opening, it was the first deck-level pool in the Southern Hemisphere. The 1956 souvenir brochure states that the pool is based on a modern standard, 165 feet by 55 feet, suitable for the biggest sporting events such as Empire or Olympic Games.
Thank you for taking our tour. We hope it has illuminated Naenae and some of our rich history. We love living here.